Officials in China are ratcheting up the rhetoric against the U.S. Combative tone comes as both countries break on Taiwan, COVID-19, the war in Ukraine. The Chinese foreign minister says there will be, quote, conflict and confrontation between the two nations if things don't improve. The minister went on to say competition between the two countries is a reckless gamble. The State Department responded saying that they want to peacefully coexist with China. Joining us this morning to talk more about the rising tensions between the two world superpowers is Robert Daly, director of the Kissinger Center Institute of China and the U.S. at the Wilson Center. Good morning to you, Mr. Daly. Thank you for being with us. So Chinese President Xi Jinping made a rare statement suggesting the U.S. is trying to encircle China. How do you measure the temperature in the room between these two world powers right now?
Our relationships are bad and are getting worse. And I think that it is true that if they continue along this track, if we cannot arrest this fall through diplomacy, then the odds of conflict between the two countries will go up.
What's the solution?
Well, we don't know. We don't have a full solution. Nobody can see it. We're in too deep a hole. And of course, the old advice is when that happens, step one is just stop digging. And in the case of U.S. China relations, I think what that means is we have to begin to talk to each other regularly. Our leaders need to meet. They need to discuss military security matters, especially as they relate to Taiwan. They need to talk about our economic relationship. They need to talk about technology, and they need to talk about world order, international institutions, because right now our competition comprises all of these regions. So we need to cool down the rhetoric on both sides, and we need to start meeting with each other. Now, that doesn't mean that things are going to go smoothly. This is going to be, in all likelihood, a decades-long competition characterized by extreme distrust and high costs, but we need to talk.
Yeah, it is a complex relationship at best. Let's talk a little bit more about Taiwan. What are the benefits of a face-to-face meeting between what we're hearing, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and Taiwan's president, happening here in the U.S. versus happening in Taiwan as what was originally planned?
Well, this was originally an announcement that Kevin McCarthy had made. Taiwan had never planned on it. McCarthy had said he would go because Nancy Pelosi had gone when she was the Speaker of the House. Taiwan then made it clear that actually a visit by McCarthy is not in Taiwan's interests. It may make Kevin McCarthy or the other members of Congress who go with him feel good. They get to feel self-righteous. We stand by the free people of Taiwan. But the free people of Taiwan are saying, no, this really puts us in more danger. So why don't we meet in California instead? Now, China will still be angry about that meeting. They will be angry that Tsai Ing-wen, the president of Taiwan, is on American soil. They will be angry that she is giving a speech at the Reagan Library. But it isn't quite as egregious from Beijing's point of view as Kevin McCarthy being in Taiwan. Now, obviously, we can't be driven entirely by what makes China angry. China is nearly constantly angry if things don't go its way. The real test of whether it makes sense for somebody like McCarthy or other American leaders to go to Taiwan is whether it is conducive to the long-term security of the people of Taiwan. And in this case, Taiwan has said clearly, no, thanks for your good intentions, but we'd rather you didn't land here.
Well, and China has increased its military spending, that we know, by about 10%. Does that suggest that they are getting closer, getting ready to do something in regards to Taiwan?
It suggests that they're getting ready to be ready. We know that they're increasing their military expenditures, as are we. Both sides are largely militarizing this conflict. Both sides are guilty of this in different ways. The fact that Xi Jinping wants to have the option of moving decisively on Taiwan, while extremely worrisome, is not the same thing as Xi Jinping's decision to move decisively on Taiwan. And so we need to delay the day on which he makes that decision, absolutely through deterrence, but also through diplomacy and on articulating some form of a one China policy that we believe in and that we will abide by, because we have been really whittling away at the China policy for the one China policy for the past few years.
And just one more question on Taiwan. Washington's stance and policy in regards to Taiwan has been described as strategic ambiguity. President Biden has said that if China invades Taiwan, the U.S. Will defend Taiwan. Which is it? Where does it land in between?
Well, President Biden has said some version of this 4 times, and every time his staff walks it back. So it's not yet strategic clarity. We haven't formally declared that we would defend Taiwan, although we're getting awfully close. But the fact is that if China decided to move on Taiwan, regardless of what President Biden has said, they would assume American involvement. Their military planners, like ours, would make worst case assumptions. And the assumption for China is that the United States would get involved, again, regardless of what President Biden does or does not say.
And when you're speaking about ambiguity, the same could be said about China's relationship with Russia right now as well. Have to talk about that next time, Robert. We're out of time. Robert Daly, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.